Hi, this is about sociology and how I became someone who walks that path of a sociologist. And first of all, I'm calling it a path. No, I'm not a sociology professor. I don't have a PhD, so I'm not calling myself a sociologist by profession. What I mean is, it's a it's an outlook and it's a journey. So what I've mostly done professionally is teach English overseas. But that's been a way for me to explore and test and theorize and hypothesize from a sociological perspective and kind of be always in that participant observer mode. So, how did I begin on this path? Well, it actually began in a math class that I took my junior year of high school called pre-calculus. And I was getting straight A's in basically, almost everything till I got to pre-calculus. And I think it was just too kind of, I'm not blaming the teacher, but there wasn't really a way that to connect whatever we were doing in pre-calculus class and in the book with anything that we'd be doing outside of that class and that book. And so I just really couldn't relate to it in a strange way, not to the teacher, but just to the math itself. Um, and it was really hard. And, I met with the teacher, you know, before school. I tried, that class kicked my butt. And when I finished that year, I didn't need any more math to fulfill my math requirements to graduate. So I could have just taken an off period. Now, when I was in high school, we had a block schedule. So basically, I would have had an hour and a half off every other day for the entire school year. But I thought, I'm going to go to college and there's going to be, I knew enough about college to know that there was going to be a class that I would have to take that would be difficult, and I guess I didn't have the word for it at the time, but what I was thinking of was prerequisite. So I said, I'm just going to go ahead and take calculus just to basically learn to take the hits. You know what I'm saying? And I took it, and it was as bad as I thought. It was worse. I had really cool teacher. Um, I think he was really excited because it was one of the few times he had a basketball player in his class, um, and it was hard. So once I got into a university, I actually started off at Duke University, which I guess if you're not from the U.S., it's a college in North Carolina. Um, and I had already started to begin what I call a sort of intellectual and spiritual path. And I basically was using college and university to explore, meaning I'm just going to take classes that I feel are going to help me advance on these questions and these interests that I have. I took a, so I'm going to get back to the math thing. I took an interest in religion, not that I wanted to join a given religion or any religion at all, but just what are these people doing? You got like these like blue gods and these holy mountains and these rituals and these rivers. You know what I'm saying? Um, People pray this way, they wear this, they wear that. There's this like devotion, these languages, these songs, this music. You know what I'm saying? This instrumentation, like all of this. These cultures, right? Um, so I just wanted to know like what is going on with that. So I was just taking a totally random assortment of classes my first year in college that no one had anything to do with the other in the practical sense of graduating. but they all had a lot to do with these questions in this search that I've just been outlining to you. So, I mean, I took like religions of Asia, um, art of Asia. I don't really think I was into Asia in particular. I remember later in college, I started to get into African studies when I could. Um, and I remember once I took a class. Well, let me back up. So I went to 1 year at Duke, and it was like when I was in high school, I thought, yeah, I'm really gonna want to party in college. I want to party. And Duke was a party school, also a good school, so I thought, let me go there. But I'm like, man, there's nothing to do here but party. We're kind of like in Durham, North Carolina, like, you know what I mean? I want more. And I was already thinking before I started about going to New York. I had actually had a dream about New York one time when I was in high school. So I was applying and I got accepted into Columbia, which is kind of like uptown Manhattan. And if you're not familiar with New York, most of the movies that you watch that take place in New York City take place in Manhattan. You know, the skyscrapers and all that, that's in Manhattan. So like when you think of New York, what you're actually thinking of is Manhattan, but New York is kind of like 5 cities combined into one. Anyway, you don't need to know the geography. I was at Columbia my second year of university, and by the end of that semester, it was like the words started going around like, it's major day, you got to declare your major. And I was like, my what? And they were like, yeah, like, what are you going to major in? I'm like, uh, uh, like I somehow it hadn't dawned on me that like you have to choose a major in college. I was like, I thought I just needed like to pass all my classes and then I can graduate, right? And they're like, no, I mean, I must have known, but I must have forgotten. I must have gotten caught up. So I was like, I can only study one thing? Like, I'm just kind of like, I want to study everything. Like, I had taken oceanography, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, I don't know, man. Like, do they got a pottery class? Like, so I really started to look into it, and sociology popped up for 2 reasons. Number one, there was no math requirement. And I told myself I was never going to take math again after my experiences junior and senior year. Second, it's like, it's about people. I'm like, yeah, I want to study like cultures and just kind of know like, how do you live that way? What does that dress mean? Uh, rituals, scarification, whatever it might be. So what I thought sociology was is what anthropology actually is now that I'm looking back. And the only reason I know that is because I took some anthropology electives, but I didn't mind sociology at all. I think it's a little bit more scientific. I think anthropology in a way is like, it can be totally subjective, just like, I'm out here, I'm around these people, and I'm just saying stuff about them, and I'm just, saying they're doing this, and I'm putting some fancy words on it, and I'm comparing what I said to what someone else said. Sociology does have a more hard science, statistical element to it. It can be, and sometimes it must be empirical. So I didn't mind it at all. What I did at Columbia was what's called a concentration, which is not a major. A major has a certain number of courses in the department you have to take. It's not even a minor. A minor is a lesser number of courses. It's a concentration, which basically means you will take more classes in this department than you will in any other department. But I chose concentration because it allowed me the maximum number of, it doesn't even matter what other courses you take, as long as you meet the concentration requirements. At Columbia, you can graduate with a concentration. So I said, fine, I'll make sure I take the minimum number of courses in one field, and I kind of get the best of both worlds. I can continue to basically explore randomly anything I want. And so I remember once, I mean, obviously you can see I saw college as way different than what a lot of people do. I remember I actually got offered to, I got an offer for a 5-year MBA program at FAMU, Florida A&M Agricultural and Mechanical, I think, University, which is in Florida. And they flew me out there. And I was like, yeah, I'll have an MBA in 5 years. Like, I can get a good job, whatever. But I was like, okay, now in this course of study, I mean, is there any room for electives? They're like, no, you're pretty much going to take exactly what's on this piece of paper right here. We might change it up a little bit, but you'll have no room for anything else. I was like, I'm not really like, I wasn't into one thing for sure, to the exclusion of everything else. Um, I could have played basketball at one place, and I was into basketball. I wasn't really happy with what I was able to do in my high school team, with their coaching concept. So I thought, maybe I'll still do that. But they were like, if you study here and you want to play, we wouldn't want you to study abroad. Like, you'd basically lose your spot on the team. And I was like, nah, man, I want to explore. I don't want to just be a jock, like doing nothing but playing basketball, practicing, going to class, study hall with the guys from the team, and then, dinner hall, whatever they call it, with the guys from the team, sleep, in a building or dorm room with guys from the team. You know what I mean? I really wanted that freedom. So I did study abroad. I studied with a pretty prominent social scientist, um, and while I was in Australia, and I liked that opportunity. I think I liked it more than he did because whatever questions I had, whatever theories I was proposing were so out there that I don't even know if he wanted to hear it, but whatever. Um, and while I was in Australia, the reason I wanted to bring that up, not about sociology, but I'm going to get back to sociology one more time. Obviously, I digress on a minor and major scale quite a bit in my life. Um, I took a class about the spread of 3 different religions, um, chronologically, I guess: Buddhism, Christianity, and Islam. What was so cool about that class is that there were 3 different professors who taught it. So for one portion, we had a Buddhist, if not a practicing Buddhist, someone who was a professor of Buddhism. And then that segment ended, that professor left, and we had another specialist in, Christianity, and likewise for Islam. And just having someone who is a specialist, if not a practitioner, of each respective religion, it was like taking 3 different courses in one, because they didn't even deal with what the other professor taught and how. They just brought in their own material, their own, analytical perspectives, like basically their own historiography, their own way of looking at history, and their own set of, terms and stuff like that. So this is why I study sociology. Part of it is the program at Columbia in particular gave me the freedom to continue to explore, and also because I really wanted to explore the meaning of human behavior and how to make sense of the world. Um, the reason that I even brought this up is because one of my former teaching assistants, not professors, posted recently something very personal and very touching about um, kind of a real upheaval that she had in her life, and how sociology was basically how she found herself and was able to find a way of defining the world, and always being able to define an ever-changing world. The world itself was changing, and where she was in the world was always changing. Um, that person ended up being my TA at Columbia, and I felt like she was, I don't even know if she knows this, the only professor, and again, not even professor, but TA, but someone on that level that I ever connected with throughout my entire college and university experience. Um, I never sat and chatted or felt like doing so really with anyone else that I was taught by throughout all of my college, and I basically studied at four different universities when it was all said and done. I mean, I think I'm the only person. She's the only person who could have like understood me, maybe, because like I was just, I think, so different than everyone else. Like, you really have a formative social experience your freshman year of college because they tend to put freshmen in the same dormitory buildings. This is different if you're not from America. In most universities, people live at the university for the whole time that they're there. And first year students are assigned certain buildings in a certain area of campus so they can kind of gel and get to know each other and kind of, I don't know, form as a cohort. They do something similar in the UK, at least, with these kind of colleges, but it's completely different meaning. In America, college and university are basically the same thing. As far as I know, in the UK, colleges are these kind of buildings where people gather. It's like we live here and we're also kind of a group. So people who live there, it's called a college. Anyways, if you're not from America, that's what happens. And then you spend the rest of your 4 years really close with those people. You'll probably end up being roommates for the rest of your 4 years with people that you meet during your first year. Well, I came to Columbia not knowing anybody. So I didn't really have that experience. I never really got that attached to a class. Of course, people my age became my friends. But when I left to go to Australia, um, I kind of took some time off school while I was there. By the time I got back, my graduating class had graduated. And my first semester back, after being away for 2 whole years, I had converted to Islam too. So really, who could identify with me? This person could. So as a comment to her post about her path to and through sociology and with sociology, in sociology, I commented, I'm not sure if my story really has the same inspiration behind it, but now that I thought about it, I think it does. So I made this video, I'm sharing it. Last little anecdote, I wasn't really that career minded or really future minded at all. And I remember when people would ask, what's your major? I would say sociology. They would say, so what are you going to be, a social worker? Not only am I not going to be a social worker, I don't even know if those two are connected, and I have no idea what I'm going to do. And second, I remember one of my friend's mother was like, why are you studying that? Meaning like, why not be a doctor or a business? And I couldn't even explain. I was like, because it's interesting. Shouldn't we study stuff that's like interesting? So, you know what? Whatever you end up doing, if you're pursuing your passion, you're going to come out on top. I mean, you're going to find yourself somewhere that you want to be. I'm not talking about financially. I'm not excluding finances either. I'm saying you're going to find yourself that you want to be if you like where you're going and the way you're getting there. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, that's all I wanted to share. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you find what comes after this post interesting. The only way for you to know that is if you follow. We're all out here in this kind of lockdown quarantine situation. So, let's not be, let's not go from social distancing to social isolation. And by that, I mean, let's kick it, let's conversate. Why don't you comment? Why don't you invite me to watch, like, and comment on whatever content you're producing, no matter what kind it is. And hopefully that'll be a way for us to all get through this together by getting through it together. So like, share, comment, follow, etc., etc. Peace.